to do, just to set the agenda for today's webinar, we'll first go through some fun video marketing facts that I was able to drum up on the internet. And then we'll introduce the panel for today. And we'll spend about 40 to 45 minutes discussing various topics that we've outlined. But then we really want to open the floor to questions and make sure that everyone can take away as much information about video marketing and the rise of TikTok as possible today. So thank you again for everyone who joined, and we're very excited to have you, and we'll get started with that. So with that, the growth of the video marketing industry has been one that has really evolved. When you think of traditional marketing back in the day, video was primarily used for TV advertising. And now with social media and just the amount of screen time Americans and all global customers are spending on either their desktops or their mobile devices, video marketing is becoming more and more important for brands of all sorts. So I think a really interesting statistic is that 3 years ago, only 63% of companies were using video for marketing. And as the opportunity and as marketers identified the effectiveness of video marketing, that number grew to 87% last year. Sorry. And then by 2022, the video will account for 82% of all consumer internet traffic. And I think that really speaks to not only the original content that's being produced on YouTube and Netflix and other streaming services, but just the general engagement that users are dedicating to the amount of time they're watching video. And what I think all marketers want to know is the amount that consumers actually retain when receiving new messaging. And according to a study, viewers actually retain 95% of the message when they watch it in video, compared to only 10% when reading it in text. And I think this is really important when brands are not only thinking about their advertising, but also about the user experience on their own product detail pages, whether that be on their own website or other third-party marketplaces such as Amazon. So with that, I would love to introduce today's panelist. We can go down the list. So Evan, we'll start with you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Laura. My name's Evan Horowitz. I'm the CEO at Movers and Shakers. We are a creative agency focused on spreading joy. So everything we do, we're trying to put a big smile on consumers' faces, really create a positive emotional energy and connect that back to the brand to drive more brand love. We work across digital. We do a lot of content campaigns for YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And in the last year, we've become one of the leaders in TikTok marketing. We hold the record for most viral campaign in TikTok history. That's Elf's Eyes, Lips, Face campaign that probably many of you are familiar with. And we recently passed 30 billion views on the platform across all of our campaigns. That's billion with a B. So happy to be here today and share a little bit of our experience.
Great, thank you. Michael?
Hey guys, my name is Michael Arking and I'm the co-founder and president of Social Motion Films. We create unique video content for brands and companies that drive sales, help brands grow and reach more consumers. Primarily we make videos for product companies, not so much for service. We do a lot in the food and beverage space with lots of brands that you know. Second to that, we do a lot in the toy space and some in the electronics. And I think, to Evan's point, our mantra is all about joy as well. And the style of our videos are very whimsical and fun and bright, and it's upbeat. I can't say we do a ton of fashion or sort of snobby sort of video. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more playful in nature.
Mark?
Thanks, Laura. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mark Rosenberg. I'm an attorney at Tarter, Krinsky, and Drogin in New York. If Evan and Michael bring joy, I'm the attorney, so I probably kill joy. I've worked with online sellers, marketers, networks, affiliates for many years, assisting them with their legal needs. And it's everything from pre-advertising review, assisting getting with releases necessary to make videos and photo shoots, advertising clearance, essentially keeping my clients out of trouble. My goal is not to say no, it's to say, how can we do this? Because sometimes there are intellectual property or other issues, and I have to work with clients to let them express what they want to express, yet stay on the right side of the law. And then I also, when clients do get in trouble, cease and desist letters, lawsuits, I work with them to get them out of the mess they're in. So I'm looking forward to speaking today.
Great. Thank you all again. And lastly, to introduce myself, I'm Laura Meyer. I am the founder and CEO of Envision Horizons. We are an Amazon marketing and strategy firm. And I'm really excited today because Amazon has really rolled out a lot of new video opportunity for brands within their ecosystem. But we've also seen such a halo effect of our clients that have strong video content externally and how that affects their overall engagement and conversion rates on Amazon. So we're going to talk a little bit about how TikTok has matured in their audience. It's not just for the 18-year-olds of the world, and what brands can actually do to have that lift in not only brand awareness using video, but really how it's becoming a true ROI related ROI opportunity for brands. So with that, we're going to get started, and we have a lot of amazing years of experience across the panel today. So one of the first questions I want to start with is, how has video evolved within your career? And more importantly, where do you see it going in the future?
Who first are you asking?
Who wants to take it?
I'm happy to jump in, I guess. So your question is, say that again, I'm sorry. Will you repeat the question? I got lost.
All good. How has video evolved within your career, and where do you see it going in the future?
Certainly. So it's tremendous for me. I came out of 15 years of e-commerce, and I remember the early 2000s of starting to get some video on e-commerce pages, on product detail pages, and how that's really evolved. In the early days, we were happy if we had some white background and maybe a model jump out with some clothing on and that was talking about a product that was fairly simple. I think it's so interesting to me that video has been around a very, very long time. But I'm seeing with even major brands, it's so much in its infancy, even to the point of, I think LinkedIn is probably less than 2 years that they've actually launched video. And I'm also speaking to major brands. One, I had a call yesterday with a huge company in New York City in the food space that said, we're getting a lot of demand for video and we need more of it. And I'm thinking, my God, you're this massive company and really backed by a lot of dollars. I'm kind of surprised I'm hearing that at this point, but it's really interesting to see that transition. And I think the distinction was, as you said, Laura, earlier, we came from TV and our backgrounds, and actually my co-partner his background was a director for big TV commercials for years. The transition to video on social and how it's used today is very, very different. And those channels are different, the uses are different. And I think that the big distinction is a multitude of platforms from Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat. Of course, there's different platforms. And I think for brands to really be out there and connect with consumers, they have to be out on these platforms with video. The distinction is, in the old days, it was a static ad or a print ad that you read in Vogue. And today it's a multitude of storytelling and immersive sort of advertising that's bringing consumers in. So I think it's funny. We feel very modern, but I really believe that we're so much in the infancy of video right now, and a lot of exciting opportunity coming forward.
For me, what I've seen is, besides it becoming more common, it's become easier. That brands can do DIY videos. That if you buy a computer, you have movie software preloaded on. You can buy. It comes with your phone. And back 10 years ago, when you had to hire a professional company to produce your videos, they knew about a lot of the legal issues. And so they were making sure the brands were taking steps to make sure the video would not get in trouble, because the producers knew that if there was an issue, it would end up down to them as well. With the DIY aspect of it, many of the companies who are producing their own videos are not aware of what they need to do and what they need to look out for. So yes, it's much more common. It's also much easier.
One trend that I would add to the conversation is, I think video is no longer just about product or brand, it's about entertainment. And the companies that are really at the forefront of their marketing and building their brands in the world are no longer trying to make videos about the product or even the brand alone. It's really about, it's replacing television. This is what especially the Millennial and Gen Z generation is going to. They're consuming video all day. It's not on TV. It's often not even on Netflix. It's on social media. And the brands that are producing entertainment that is also marketing, that fits super natively in their content consumption patterns, they're just having outsized success. And that's really how we try to approach video is, how do you tell a story? How do you engage someone emotionally in a story that, yes, gets the brand message across? Maybe it educates a bit about the product, but really it's entertaining. And that's, I think, what consumers expect from brands who are doing marketing well. And when you do that, consumers are very happy to engage with the brand.
Fantastic. And I actually want to pull a question from the audience a little bit prematurely, because I think it's somewhat relevant to what we're talking about in terms of trends and the ease of video now. So this comes from Lauren, and her question is surrounding the difference in performance and engagement of self-made videos or maybe user-generated videos versus the professionally produced videos. And if I know, Mark, you probably have a lot of legal opinions in terms of consumer generated content versus professional, but how can brands, I think, really leverage the benefits of both forms of video?
I think there's a place for all the different types of video in your marketing mix. I mean, depending on the size of the company, of course, but for bigger companies, I'm seeing them very effectively leverage all of these types. And it really does depend on the platform, I would say, is number one. You really want to feel native to the platforms. If you're producing videos for YouTube, so much of that is professionally developed, very high production value, and that feels very native when you're browsing YouTube. On TikTok, which we'll talk a lot about today, it's the opposite. Anything that feels highly produced just looks super awkward and out of place. So even when we're building TikTok channels for brands, we're filming on iPhones because that's what makes it feel authentic. We're filming in people's bedrooms. And that's professionally produced, quote unquote, because it's done by the agency, but it still feels native to that platform. So I think that's my number one suggestion is what's going to feel authentic in the context that you're communicating.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Evan on that. Absolutely, TikTok is not for highly produced, finished videos. There's a place for both. They really work hand in hand. I wouldn't say one replaces the other at all. There's a place for your video, but it should be, as Evan alluded to earlier, entertainment is part of the way to advertise across social today and across the internet. It has to be engaging, has to be thumb stopping. Like, why am I watching this? There's so much content coming at you. It's hard to get people to stop. And it's actually the less cluttered that sort of imagery is, the more they can kind of focus on something, we'll find it more engaging.
Awesome. And what would be, and this is for all panelists, what would be your advice for brands who are really looking to invest in their video strategy? I know that sometimes it can seem overwhelming, or that it could potentially be a really expensive investment, that maybe there's a lot of buildup in time and work that goes into it in the beginning, and then you have the long tail ROI afterwards. So as it pertains to platforms and how to go about it that makes sense for brands of all sizes, what would be your advice?
Evan, you want to start? Mark?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll just say, you know, for us, when we're working with a new client, it's always about what's the strategy that you're trying, what are your marketing KPIs really, right? Because there's so many right ways, quote unquote, to do video marketing, but it's not going to be the right place for you to start. You know, for example, if you're an Amazon focused business, let's drive conversions on Amazon, you know, if that's top of your list for KPIs. If you're really trying to build awareness about your brand with a different generation or a different demographic, you know, then we're going to be doing brand marketing videos. They'll be much more entertainment focused, much more brand focused, right? So I think there's a lot of ways in, but don't look at what somebody else is doing and say, oh, we should be doing that just because that was successful. It's really, you know, what's going to move the needles that you need to move in your business, because I think everybody's priorities are a little different.
And for me, I think before a brand and company starts out with video, they should speak with their attorneys and, you know, here's what we want to do, and get, you know, before you start, get the attorney's advice of what you need to look out for in terms of what documents you need to get, what releases, what the contracts must say. The first time there'll be an upfront legal expense, but going forward, you're now educated and you can recycle some of the forms, or you can just tweak some of the forms, and the attorney doesn't have to get involved as much, or if at all, if you're comfortable. But my advice is, before you launch into video marketing, speak to an attorney, and don't go to the attorney after the video is complete, but before you're about to go online, because often that's too late and you're stuck with a video you may not be able to use. So my advice is, before you start, speak to an attorney.
And when getting involved in making video marketing an initiative, would you say that there's like a minimum threshold or a minimum investment that brands should feel comfortable allocating?
That's a great question. We're very much about sort of walking before you run, and our company, Social Motion, really was kind of put together to be affordable for a certain kind of quality that customers are looking for and our clients are looking for. And I think you have to think about the uses of those videos. In the past, I mean, early on, you had a lot of these kind of storytelling videos. You'd watch the farm, you'd see where they, you know, raise the chickens and the eggs, and here's our product, and here's where our milk comes from. I think that's kind of, it's moved away from that. And I think the branding style and the pace of things is a little quicker, a little more energetic. There's been a transition, but there is a place for branding video. And then there are places for product videos. And then, you know, on the TikTok side is those user-generated style, very spontaneous type of videos. And I think you have to kind of step in and look at your business and allocate a certain amount of your budget. I mean, I was on the e-commerce side all my life, so I know what it is to maintain a budget, and I know how difficult that is. And you're usually reporting back to somebody else, and you've got to meet with them on a P&L basis. And you don't always want to have, you know, a $30,000 sort of a rounding error, like what happened this month, what did we do? So I don't recommend that. We weren't built for that. Our thing is really, how do we back into a particular budget that makes sense? Can we start with, you know, $10,000 and say, well, if we only have that right now, what can we do? Where do we start? Do we start with that shorter brand video? We do some motion graphics around it. I think the big difference is in video, as opposed to something static. You know, in the past, as I said, a static ad where it was just beautiful. You laid it down in a magazine and it was done. When you're looking at a moving image, there's an arc of a story. There's a storyboard that has to be created. It's just a lot more thinking. So you can do things internally, but it isn't that easy to do it professionally. But I would definitely lean into more spontaneous video that you're doing on the low budget yourself when you can, to start. And there is that balance between the quality of the production. And I don't think it's always so important to have super high quality. I'm not of that school where everything has to be such high production values. It's amazing sometimes how a great spontaneous video can take a product and really launch it. Who's using it? What does it feel like? Does it feel authentic?
Awesome. All right, Evan, this question's for you because I want to dig into what's going on in the world of TikTok and how, as a platform, it's really exploded ever since people have really been quarantined, or at least it seems to have matured in the audience in the last few months. So, what's happening with TikTok? Do you think it's here to stay? What do you think the future of the platform looks like?
Is that Evan or me?
Evan.
That's what I thought. He's more the TikTok expert than I am.
Yeah.
Well, we're very bullish on TikTok. I think if you look at 2019, it was the fastest growing social app ever. By the end of 2019, basically all of Gen Z was not just on TikTok, but spending more time on TikTok than any other platform. And about half of them are not even on Instagram because, sorry to break it to you, Instagram is now for old people. But 2020 has made 2019 look like a sleepy year for TikTok. In Q1 of 2020, it had more downloads than any app in any quarter in history. Wow. Any app in any quarter in history. And that was before quarantine really started, and Q2 it's been on the fast track. So as you said, Laura, it's aging up so fast. I mean, every social platform we've ever seen, it starts with the kids and it goes up, but already TikTok is majority over 25 to 35 and 35 to 45 are just exploded onto the platform with quarantine, I think. It's also aging up faster because the intergenerational aspect has always been part of the culture on TikTok. So it was originally the kids who would bring their parents or grandparents in kind of as a joke or a punchline on the videos. But now so many of those parents and grandparents have their own TikTok accounts, and some of them are becoming influencers. So it's very exciting right now. We're launching with a number of millennial-focused brands on TikTok, in a big way. And that's a lot of white space for brands, but it's very occupied space in terms of consumer eyeballs because that's where people are already spending their time. So we get to kind of write the playbook again now for how do you speak to a 30-something audience, a 40-something audience, and a 50-something audience on TikTok.
Yeah. And being that you've had such great success with a lot of your campaigns, I have to ask, is there a secret sauce for having a video go viral on TikTok? What creates that perfect storm?
There's no secret sauce in the sense like if you follow these steps, for sure it's going to go viral, but there's certainly a lot of artistry that we've been building that goes into that. A lot of the virality that we generate on TikTok is not just having this video go viral, but it's actually sparking virality in the sense of having thousands, hundreds of thousands, or sometimes millions of people on TikTok go and create their own videos to join your brand's campaign. So the biggest campaigns that we run on TikTok, literally millions of people are creating videos to join in and celebrate the brand, which is just totally wild and never been possible before on another platform. And there is a lot of sort of science and art that goes into that. The music is a huge, huge, huge piece of that. So when we're doing one of these big viral challenges, we're almost always writing original music. Even though it's just 15 seconds long, we're architecting it second by second to tee up virality. We're architecting it to tell a story and to really create a dialogue with the user. So the user who's creating their video, who's just out there in the public, will understand from the music and from seeing the demo videos that we seed it with, what they're supposed to do. And that makes it fun for them to do. And they make their video, they add their flavor, they post it, and then everybody sees that one. And then people love it. They think that's cool music, that's a cool story to tell. I'll tell my version of it. And so, that's one of the big things that fuels this sort of virality on the platform.
Awesome. And I guess speaking of original content and how important music is, not only on TikTok, but many other platforms, Mark, what advice do you give your clients as it pertains to some of the licensing and legal obstacles that companies may face when it comes down to either utilizing existing music or producing their own original music and content?
If my advice is always, if at all possible, use your own original music, because there is no copyright issue with that. If whoever you create it, you own the copyright, you can do whatever you want with it. Otherwise, if you're going to use any person's music, whether it's your next door neighbor, or you recorded him playing a guitar, or your sister playing on her flute, they own the copyright. And then it goes to, you just downloaded something off the internet and they want to use it as background music. That's problematic unless you get a license. And most music companies are not going to grant the license for a small amount, for pennies, to use on a TikTok video. They're just not for big songs. So when, if at all possible, create your own music. Then if you're using your neighbor or your sister's music, get a release, get a license that your sister or your neighbor is allowing you to use the music in your video, whether it be on TikTok, Instagram, on your own website, YouTube, anywhere, and have the broadest release possible. Because you don't want a license that allows you to use it on Instagram, but doesn't allow you to use it on TikTok or on your own website. You have to, you want the broadest release. And the interesting thing about TikTok, which from a legal perspective is the most dangerous, is that the terms and conditions allow other users to modify other user content and create their own videos from it. And my guess is that probably violates a lot of the releases and license agreements that the original user has signed to get the content, to get the people in it, to get the music. And that's something that people really need to be aware of and make clear when they're getting the licenses and the agreements, that they know that it may be modified by other users on TikTok.
Yeah. And in general, what's your advice for brands that are either reposting or using customer or user generated content? Do you think companies should embrace that? I know that many brands will write emails and maybe ask for permission and, hey, I'll tag you in this post. And especially if it's a kid on a cool brand, they're really excited to even have their photos or videos being reposted. But, what are some other best practices that brands can do to protect themselves?
Well, ideally, it is get permission before doing it. And keeping in mind, you mentioned a kid who made a cool video, but if the kid is under 18,
yeah.
the kid doesn't have the ability to sign a contract legally. So you really need the parent or guardian's permission for that. So find out the age before doing it. If that's not feasible to get everybody's permission, at least in the terms and conditions of your website, say that you may be repurposing user content and have a license built into the terms and conditions. Mm. Importantly, when somebody signs up to use your website and you're going to be doing that, they really need to affirmatively accept the terms and conditions. Because just having a small link at the bottom of your web page that says terms and conditions in a lightened font is probably not going to do it. You really need an affirmative consent. Someone checks off a box that says, I consent to these terms and conditions. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. I know it's a pain in the neck. But it can prevent a lot of grief down the road.
Yeah. And so, Michael, I know your firm does a lot of original content too for the videos that you create. So what exercises or storyboarding do you do internally so that the videos that you're creating stand out, whether they be on Instagram or YouTube or Amazon or other channels where more professional video or polished video is common?
So we basically design the video by the platform, right? In terms of if it's going to be used on Instagram, it's going to be more square, it's going to be on YouTube. So first, it's what does that screen look like and how it should be used? And I think there's different approaches and goals for each video. We completely ideate and storyboard based on the brand DNA and the product itself. So we meet with clients, we get a creative brief, we get a download, we have a lot of internal conversation, and we start to really understand the DNA of that brand or that particular new product, for instance, that they're launching, to make something interesting, fun, entertaining. We call it sort of infotainment, in the sense that, okay, this is fun to watch, but I'm learning about something and this looks like a fun company. Like I said, a lot of our films are very whimsical in nature and upbeat. So that's the first thing we're looking at. We share that with the clients. We work very closely. We call it video insourcing. Sort of, we like to be an extension of that company's video team, in the sense if they don't have an internal team, because we want to get close to their products and their brands.
Awesome. And I guess this can be a question for everyone, but with e-commerce leaders like Amazon and investing in their video offering, and in general, you're seeing a lot more videos incorporated to Shopify stores, etc. How are you seeing video as, you know, I feel like video used to be viewed as more of a brand awareness opportunity. And are you seeing it more of an ROI, like true actionable or being able to contribute to sales? And when you're speaking with your clients, you know, is the conversation more based around like, by creating these videos, we expect sales to increase by X, or is it still more of the brand storytelling? I assume it varies, but has there been a transition in terms of the, I guess, strategies with their investment into video?
I'll jump in, I'll try to answer that. I think it's a great question. I think it's very interesting. With Amazon taking up, I don't know, better than 50% of all e-commerce itself, as you know, there's an opportunity for both. Number one, we do see definite lift when adding video onto product detail pages on Amazon. Sometimes even a 50% conversion lift that can be seen from those videos. At the same time, from a branding perspective, I think it's interesting because Amazon is so competitive, so many brands are out there, so many companies are knocking off each other and making copycat products. It's actually more important than ever to substantiate that you are a brand, that you're meaningful. And so there is opportunity there to kind of make a hybrid sort of video, right? We're talking about this product, but there is some fun brand feel. You know, our philosophy, it's more important than ever to balance those two across. There's a sales part to it. And as you alluded to earlier, we specialize over the brand side of the video, the product side and the brand side together. It's a marriage. And not so much spontaneous videos, you know, or live videos, user-generated content. So there's lots of opportunity there, and I think that we're just scratching the surface of what's happening on Amazon. We had a client in the vitamin space that their sales jumped like 50% after they put a really fun, playful video on their Amazon detail page, and they're also working very hard on their direct e-commerce as well. So we're doing a whole series of videos for them. I think it's critically important. And one other thing I'll say before I close on that is that less people are shopping at retail, and there's less visibility of product and packaging. And so therefore, it's very easy to be forgotten and have your brand kind of have another competitor really encroach on your brand when you're not visible as much anymore. That's why.
I'll give you an example from a non-legal perspective. I have a client who sells online and both his own websites and on Amazon. And he had essentially a generic product that everybody was selling with their own trademark on it. And he outsold most of them. And why? He had a string of videos, both on Amazon and on YouTube, that explained the products, but they were absolutely hilarious. And it was just the owner of the company, and his brother held the iPhone, and that was it. But those videos, just these amateur videos with the CEO explaining the product and just cracking jokes, put them above everybody else who's selling really the same product with just a different brand on it. So it does help you stand out.
Yeah. And Mark, I think that reminds me a lot of the Dollar Shave Club when they first came out with their really comical videos. Like that in many ways is why they blew up as a company, was they had that personality and persona come through their video marketing.
Yep.
Now, it does seem that in order to get really strong engagement, you need for the videos to be fun. So whether you're building a strategy for TikTok or whether you're building a strategy for an on-site video, how do you map out that balance of being fun and playful and quirky versus being really informative of the product itself. And, you know, no one wants to come off as a used car salesman of whatever they're selling. But at the end of the day, that is typically an underlying motive, is to sell the product.
I would say you want to think about where in the sales funnel this video lives. And
Mm-hmm.
a common mistake, I think, is trying to have a one-size-fits-all video. You know, if you're on an Amazon product page, this is time to really go into the features and benefits, because this customer is very, very low down the sales funnel and they really want that information. If you're just running Instagram ads and you're a brand that's not very well known, you know, this is much more top of funnel. And if you get into the feeds and speeds of your product, nobody cares at that point. You need to introduce them to the brand, the personality of the brand, and just the very high level value proposition. So I think, you know, thinking about where is this video going to live in your sales funnel, what's the job of this asset, is super important.
Yeah, definitely a place for humor in videos, and it's a specialty. It's something actually we don't do, those very high profile humor viral videos. I think there's people that specialize in that. We don't even go down that path. We know how difficult humor is. It's a specialty, and you have to know how to play it. And it doesn't work for everyone. And I've seen it flop a lot of times as well. But it depends on your brand and how you position yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of, the internet can be a very cruel place sometimes, and how judged and scrutinized content can be. And don't get me wrong, there are many cases where it is totally just, but as a brand, there is a sense of vulnerability when producing any content, but especially video. And I guess, what can brands do to make sure that what they're doing is tasteful and has the personality? And, you know, I think we all cringed when Pepsi had the Kendall Jenner video a few years ago. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, there was the video of Kendall Jenner leading a protest and then offering Pepsi to an officer. And it was just very, very tone deaf, right? So I know that you have to do some A/B testing to see what's going to hit, and not all videos are winners, but you can also have the flip side of creating content that could actually be detrimental to your brand. And I know that's not a fun topic to talk about, but it is typically in the back mind of marketers, and being very conscious of what they're putting outwards on the internet and to the public. So I guess with that, I mean, Mark, do you have anything to chime in there? Like, do you advise external reviewing of larger video pushes to make sure that people, you know, the creative directors aren't just in this bubble of what they thought was a great idea originally?
It's, you know, this is not really a legal issue. It's more, are you offending people?
Yeah.
And putting aside defamation and, you know, improperly trashing your client, your competitor's products. Yeah, the more people who look at it, you know, you test it, and, you know, from different demographics, the safer you are. Mm-hmm. Because if everybody who's sitting in that room is the same, or you're not going to catch things that people may find offensive. You know, the Pepsi ad you just mentioned, you wonder, how did that get through? How many people signed off on it? Because I'm sure they all look the same. And that's why you need a mixed focus group that really, you don't have to have a professional focus group. You just show it to people and what do you think? Mm-hmm. But you can't just show it to people who are the same. Mm-hmm. You got to go up and down and sideways for demographics.
I think what's tough there is that the people that are producing those in the first place are, the people below them are sometimes afraid to challenge them. And that's what happened to the big agencies also. Everybody says it's great, but secretly they don't believe it is. So there's a problem. They're afraid to challenge and they'll wait down the road. We kind of stay out of political statements just to keep away from that. I mean, you want to be with current events, but at the same time, making a political statement is always dangerous. And you really got to study it. And as Mark said, you've got to share it with enough people to really know whether that makes sense. And people of different age groups and demographics, for sure.
But it's not, it's also, it's just, sometimes things are not funny, that the people involved in creating the video think it's a riot. And I've told clients that, you know, this has nothing to do with the law. It's not funny. In fact, people can take offense to it, and they had no clue.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, you know, humor can be very dangerous. Which is what certain people find funny, many others find offensive.
Yeah.
I do want to provide
and there's also the whole concept of jumping on bandwagons too, which, you know, sometimes when you're the last to respond to something, people roll their eyes like, oh, well, you know, there's, you know, like there's another company changing their logo to rainbow because it's Pride Week, but like, were they there 5-10 years ago when there actually were brands advocating for Pride?
You mean like now more than ever?
Yeah, I mean, in
That
general.
sentence, can I can't hear it anymore. Evan, I'm sure you have plenty of fun stuff to talk about when it comes to this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the advice, and of course you want to be cautious and wise, but at the same time, I don't want people to be scared of messing up. You know, you're gonna mess up, and this is a choice that every brand makes, and all of our clients are, you know, they fall differently in their risk reward profile. But I think the ones that are willing to push the envelope, the, you know, bigger the risk, the bigger reward, definitely bears true in marketing. Those clients that we have, that they just want to be out front. They're happy to take the bullets because they also want to take the glory, and they want to have the visibility, and they want to do things that are innovative. You know, they get outsized results, no question. So, you know, again, like you got to figure out what's right for your brand and where you fall on that spectrum. But I think that sort of bravery and willingness to take a stand, whether it's political or just being the first, you know, mover on a new platform or using a new format or something, that can pay off a lot, and it can backfire, but that's kind of part and parcel.
And Evan, I want to go back to a point you made earlier about Instagram. It's not where the old people are. I'm on Instagram. But I think, you know, when brands, like, I guess you mentioned about being an early mover on a platform. So you said that there's a lot of white space for the more millennial brands, but, you know, what about even like the Gen X and baby boomer brands that have products where they're targeting those demographics? Is TikTok premature, or should they be building true or different strategies for all of the different channels? And, you know, how do you even have the bandwidth for all of that if you're a mid to small size brand?
Well, I think that's a key question, is the bandwidth, you know, and it depends on the size of your company. You know, if you're a big multinational, yeah, you have the bandwidth. You need to start reallocating it ahead of where the trend of where your consumers are. If you're a startup and you're scrappy, no, you got to be smart and you stay super focused. Don't try to be on every platform. That's not wise, right? So it depends, I think, on how big of a team you have, how early of an adopter you want to be. But we do see, you know, like just on TikTok specifically, that Gen X, that boomer audience is coming quickly onto the platform. Not in full force. I don't know if all boomers will be on it in 2021. I think all millennials will be on it in 2021. But it's a wide open opportunity for brands that do have the resources to be there. You know, there's a lot of grandmas and grandpas who are very successful on TikTok, and they could be your influencers, and there's other people who are following them. So, you know, if you have the bandwidth, I think it's a really interesting opportunity. If you don't have the bandwidth, don't get distracted, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Distraction, that's a great point, Evan. Getting distracted, I see that with a lot of clients. You want to do everything. Definitely, if you're a smaller company, you don't have the bandwidth, you need to start someplace. Stop worrying about every social platform. Stop worrying about the newest platform, the newest thing. You need to start somewhere, start slow, and build up accordingly, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, I remember early on in my career making those mistakes, actually wanting to do everything. I notice it all the time where people are building new companies and new websites, and they're looking at the competitors and they're saying, yes, we want this. And you don't realize that that was built over 10 years of, you know, trial and error. And you can't just get there in one day where you have every single option, every loyalty program, every win back, every customer cart abandonment. You don't have it all in one day, all those parts of the solution from day one. It takes time. Same in social media. Just start, just begin.
Awesome. Well, I want to leave some time in the conversation to address the questions that have come up in the chat box as well as the Q&A. So I'm going to start with Jillian Harding's question, which is regarding the legality of using other songs on TikTok. And Mark, what your advice would be?
You have to have rights to use that song. It's either you own it or you got to have a license to it. But other than that, the answer is you can't. It's copyright infringement, and because this is being used for in a commercial nature, as opposed to just two people goofing around and dancing to music, you're more likely to attract the attention of the rights owner. So, as I mentioned before, ideally, you own the music you use on TikTok or any of these videos, but particularly any of these platforms, but particularly TikTok, because the users can modify. But you have to have permission to use any song, any music in any video, whether it's on TikTok or any other platform.
Got it. And, you know, what about also, I know there's a lot of voiceovers on TikTok. So whether that be from movies or TV shows, that fun, quirky videos that people are doing to be culturally relevant, does the same go for that? I mean, what are the risks of throwing some cheeky videos in there where, you know, maybe you're quoting a like 90s movie because 90s nostalgia is, you know, still a thing even like a year or two later?
It all depends. If somebody you're not using the movie, you're just actually using a line, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you start taking the soundtrack from the movie, again, because you're using it in a commercial context,
Mm-hmm.
there are risks.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a tiny portion of the movie, but there's a potential that the studio is going to complain and say, take it down. And you want to invest in creating a video, and then you're up for a few days and get a cease and desist letter.
Mm-hmm. What about a follow-up question from Anthony is, what about royalty-free music? Does that leave you in the clear, or is there still some risk there?
It all depends what the license says
Mm-hmm.
to use the royalty-free music. That you have to read the fine print.
Got it.
On TikTok, they recently released a royalty-free library specifically for brand accounts where they've taken care of that licensing. So agree with Mark, you can still, if your legal is strict, you can check the T's and C's there, but that's the intention of that. And for other of our clients where they're more conservative, we construct custom song libraries where we get special licenses for them that are also TikTok appropriate music. So that's another path, to be super safe.
Evan, this is a short question, yes or no. Is that Lauren heard that the hashtag FYP makes something go more viral. True or false?
That's a commonly held myth. It's
yeah.
not.
All right, I had a feeling. Great questions coming through, so I'm going to try and get through as many as possible. Another question for Evan from Amanda is, Evan, do you have any thoughts on how smaller brands who don't have the budget to fund viral challenges can enter the space? Do you think it's all about taking the same approach of original music and trends, or is it finding the right type of influencer to amplify the concept trend rather than relying on spend to boost it?
Yeah, I mean, there's many ways to engage on TikTok, and for any size budget, you can find appropriate entry points. The cheapest and simplest ways to get on the platform is just doing some ads. You can spend there's no minimums anymore on the ads, so you can just play with ads. You can hire influencers for not a lot of money. So those are very simple and quick and easy ways to get on the platform. You're not going to be sparking a viral movement through that, but that's fine. I think not every brand has to aspire to be the next LFI's Lips face. You know, and then it goes up from there. Having a brand channel is something that I think is super important now for any substantial brands. In 2020, it feels optional, but by 2021, it's not going to be optional anymore. So you want to get ahead of that. And that doesn't need to cost you a lot of money. You can produce that in-house. And in terms of sparking these big viral movements specifically, yeah, I mean, there's a range of ways to do it. The big ones that you read about in the newspaper, you know, that are getting these billion views, you know, for that, our clients are investing in the mid to high six figures to pull something like that off. We're also pioneering ways to do more organic virality. That's in the low six figures, but it's still not like for a startup, you know, probably the place you would want to start.
Awesome. Just organizing all of the questions. So I think that goes to, I want to pull a question from Will here, who his question is, how would you manage your client expectations when getting started on TikTok? You know, how much time does it really take an effort to start to see an ROI and lift in sales?
It depends on which way you're going in, you know, like I was just saying. So if like, the simplest way, especially if you're ROI focused, is just to start buying advertising. If your company is, you know, used to performance marketing, you have a sense of what that looks like for you. You want to create creative that feels native to TikTok, which doesn't need to cost a lot of money. You know, because when we're making ads for TikTok, we still want them to have that very organic feel, very different from Instagram creative. So that's like a simple and sort of quickest path to ROI. If you want to be a TikTok billionaire and, you know, have one of these massively viral campaigns, you know, that's a much bigger and longer investment, and it's not ROI focused. Although sometimes there's a sales lift that's generated from them. That's not the point of those campaigns. They're really brand marketing campaigns. So you know, I think there's a range of ways to engage on the platform, and it really is good to be clear about what your goals are. And, you know, as Michael was saying earlier, don't get distracted by, you know, what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. And regarding TikTok influencers, so Richard had a question on rates and hiring TikTok influencers. Specifically, he asked about those with 2 million followers, but I think in general, you know, there was a big inflation in terms of working with influencers on Instagram, where even people with 10,000 followers were trying to charge a fortune for any endorsement. So are you saying that some of the TikTok influencer rates are much lower for brands and easier to enter those type of engagements?
Yeah, definitely. The influencer rates on TikTok are lower on average, significantly lower than what you would see on YouTube or Instagram or Twitch or one of the more established platforms, just because the market is newer. There's fewer brands who are vying for those influencers, but it is changing quickly. I mean, we've been on TikTok now for a year, and it's you know, it's night and day from where we started. Brands are flooding onto the platform. All of a sudden, influencers of any size are starting to have, you know, their phones ringing, and of course, you know, everybody wants to be making their career out of it, so people are asking for more money. But it is definitely still quite a bit more affordable. And, you know, one of the big tips there is to make sure you're working with TikTok native creators. I think a big mistake we see is brands, they have their relationships with their influencers on, you know, Instagram or YouTube, and oh, that same guy or girl, they've got a TikTok too, so we'll buy a TikTok post from them. But it doesn't tend to work as well, both because they're used to rates on the other platforms, so it's more expensive, and they also tend to not be as good at creating TikToks because it's just such a different type of content.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of questions here about TikTok, I think, because it's so new. So Meyer here has a question regarding the importance of post frequency and if that has a really large impact on campaign success.
Well, like, let's say, I'm assuming we're talking about having your brand channel, right? So what we recommend for brands is daily content. That's sort of the standard that we see for serious brands on the platform. If you look at the top influencers on TikTok, they're posting 5 to 10 times a day, literally, because they know that works. And, you know, I think one of the key things to understand here is the TikTok algorithm is so different from the Instagram algorithm. or any other one. You know, on Instagram, how many people see your posts is very much a function of how many followers you have, because that's basically the only people who are going to see it are people who follow you. On TikTok, following is only it's a small portion of the algorithm. And you know, there's so many stories of somebody starting their TikTok channel and their very first post gets 1 million, 10 million views. You know, that does happen. We started a brand channel recently, and 2 of the first 3 posts got over 1 million views. And so the algorithm is so much more dramatic, and that's why the frequency is so important, because most posts won't get that much pickup, but some will. And so you really want to keep spinning that wheel.
Yeah, and I can even say from my own personal experience, I developed my dog's Instagram a few years ago, right? And I got him up to 35,000 followers. And that was before Instagram really changed their algorithm. And for me, it was just so much more exciting to have a platform where I could experience growth, and I could post a photo and get thousands and thousands of likes. And then as the algorithm changed and you had to spend more on advertising to get engagement, I lost interest. And it's, you know, the For You page on TikTok really seems to be where a lot of the consumers are doing the continual scroll versus the continual scroll of an Instagram feed. And I actually read last night that TikTok had released some insights into that For You formula or algorithm on their blog just yesterday. And it is very interesting because I still think that there are some conspiracies that I will want to believe about how it reaches into your contacts list and then builds this bigger web. But I hope, for the sake of the platform, that TikTok continues to allow people who aren't as established have the opportunity to get that type of reach.
Can I just jump in for a second? You mentioned contact lists.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are aware, but in the terms and condition of TikTok, if you share your contacts with TikTok, they get to send emails to your contacts. And for a brand, that might be outside or violate your privacy policy. So think twice about doing that, not on your personal side, but on your business side. That if you don't, I would not share your contacts with TikTok, because if you have a privacy policy, the odds are you probably violated your privacy policy by doing that.
Awesome. Well, we just hit 3 o'clock. Thank you for everyone who participated, attendees, as well as our lovely panelists. With that, I don't know if we want to do some closing thoughts. I'm sorry we weren't able to get to all of the questions today, but Michael, Mark, and Evan, I'll let you do a quick sign off.
Sure, just have fun. TikTok is a fun place. It's a joyful place. So make sure you personally and your brand has fun there. And I'm going to drop off because I got to run to another meeting. But thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Evan.
Thank you. Mark?
Sure. Video is great. It's a lot of fun. It engages people. Just don't cut corners on the legal side, because at the end of the day, it never works. And you don't want to create this great video and then get a cease and desist letter. So don't cut corners is my advice, but keep doing the video, keep being creative, and have fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. I guess I'll close with just start. Do some video, start small, get yourself out there. That's the medium. That's going to be 82% of the consumption going forward. And it is an inexpensive way really to reach the masses. We had a video go out where there were 10 million views on YouTube, 50% view through. I think it's a great way to promote your brand, and I think it's huge. And I think with a focused effort across platforms, small brands can really be tremendous. So thank you, Laura. Thanks for the time today.
Yeah.
I certainly enjoyed it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. And thank you again to everyone who's still online. We look forward to hosting future webinars, so be prepared for future invitations. And everyone have a great and fabulous weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.